Welcome to Bits and Banks, the digital disruptors, the show where we get candid with C-suite on how digital transformation is changing the lives of members and customers one bold idea at a time. Joining us today is Elizabeth Osborne, COO at Great Lakes Credit Union, who was named one of American Banker's most powerful women in credit unions for 23 and 24. Very impressive. Elizabeth
Thank you.
oversees everything from technology and digital operations to payments and contact centers. She's not just a C-suite executive. She's also juggling three board positions. Apparently, running an innovative credit union wasn't enough to keep her busy. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate that. Now, in every podcast, I start on a little bit of a light note. So here it
Okay.
goes. As a visionary leader, Elizabeth launched Olive, an AI chatbot, so sophisticated it now speaks in both English and Spanish, handles thousands of calls daily, and she's testified about it to the Congress. But here's one thing. Olive still can't recommend good Tex-Mex spots in Chicago. For that, you need to go directly to Elizabeth. She's pushing the edge of innovation in banking, one y'all and one enchilada at a time. Thank you.
Love it.
All right. So let's jump right in. So
Okay.
obviously we talked about Olive at the outset, and that is a fantastic initiative in the call center arena, leveraging Gen AI and AI. And as I think about, just step back and think about the credit union strategic objectives that, let's say, credit unions in the billion to 30, 40 billion asset size are thinking about. One of the things that I would love for you to share is area of cost efficiency, service quality trade-offs. So I'll preface that now with the first question. So as you were planning an initiative in the call center transformation, how did you go about building the business case for, especially in call center optimization, to blend Gen AI with humans? And what is your advice to credit unions that are using to leverage this powerful capability from a 2026 planning cycle?
Yeah, it's a big question, and I'll share that it's a question I get asked a lot by different credit union leaders because they don't even know where to begin, right?
Correct.
So I always talk about you got to create a really strong business case. I'll say for Great Lakes Credit Union, this particular case, it started as like a proposal, really became the starting, almost like laid the groundwork for us on how we present cases and opportunities for significant business line changes going forward. So because it was so successful. And so in terms of the business case, AI wasn't even something I was considering at first when I was pulling it together. I was tasked with running a contact center. I'd never run a contact center before. So Steve Bugg, our CEO, he's amazing. He was so right in this comment he made to me, because when he was like, Elizabeth, this is a great career opportunity. You're gonna run the contact center. You can learn a lot.
That's a good one. Yeah.
He's like, this could be a career defining moment. I'm like, okay, we'll see how that goes. And he was spot on. It really was. And so I was able to pull my background of having more technology based initiatives and really looking at how can we make things more efficient. And so as I was assessing the contact center and looking at different approaches and options to improve morale, to reduce the turnover, to improve the technology because they were significantly behind, to improve the member experience because calls were lengthy. We had a lot of drop-offs. The call link, it was a hot mess. So we needed to fix it. So it was during that time, it was about 2.5, almost 3 years ago now, that started to hear a little bit about AI solutions in banking and financial institutions. And so I started to have some discussions with different providers on using AI and how we could apply that to this particular case. And so in those discussions, I pulled in with their assistance, building the case that stated, hey, how can we really tie together technology in partnership with human beings, our agents who really know our members, to deliver a broader, enhanced, significantly improved experience. And so it was that process that really helped us. But looking at different partners was key, assessing the solutions, the tech they already had in place, the models that were built, the integrations they had, looking at the cost benefit,
Mhm.
uh, really making a plan of how this will impact the team and identify opportunities. And so that turned out to be a very, very, very thorough, lengthy process that we were able to reap the benefits from.
And related to that, did you
Yeah.
have like a year one, year two, year three goal? Did you kind of have a crawl, walk, run mindset to your business plan?
We kept it really simple. Yeah, really simple. Definitely started by crawling, but quickly went to the walk run,
Mhm.
mostly because we were able to, by keeping it simple, and when I say simple, I felt it was very important that because this technology, especially at the time, you think about 2, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
was kind of scary.
Yeah. It was
People,
at the infancy.
we
It was
were
at an infancy there. Yeah.
very much so. And for financial institutions, whether you're a bank or a credit union, people are asking, hey, could our regulators say we can't even do this, that we may have to stop using it? That was a big question at the time.
Yeah.
And so our approach was to keep it simple and leverage scenarios, models, really workflows and processes that have already been built out and vetted
Correct.
and then introduce it that way. So for us, we started simply by leveraging that. And we picked a partner, Interface AI,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
had already introduced a virtual, conversational bot for both banks and credit unions and
Yeah.
already had a pre-built out integration with our core provider, which is Jack Henry Symitar.
Got it.
So that
Got it.
allowed us to take advantage of the work that's already been done.
Yeah.
So we went in it with a crawl approach to say, okay, let's not customize it. Just take advantage of what's there, monitor, and then as time went on, we tweaked it, made adjustments, and then started to introduce over time more, I would say, things that are more customized or unique to our institution. But
Yeah.
at that time, our models knew our members. They knew our institution. And so we're able to see success quite a bit faster because of that.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think there are a couple of vendors. There's Posh, there's Glear. So there's a couple of folks have come together who have now started to really focus on this, what you call as a pre-packaged prescriptive solution set. So I think that's correct. And I think that especially
Yes.
where this technology is complex, you need somebody to put that entire wrapper, including core integrations and such. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask
Mhm.
you a strategic question as you were thinking about the business case, and now that you've got a couple of years of experience on it, on actually using this in the front line. When you think about member satisfaction and cost efficiency, now we live in an uncertain economic environment where everybody acknowledges that cost efficiency ratios for credit unions or broadly for CFIs is very critical. So, is there a trade-off in your mind between cost efficiency, which is one big mandate of a call center operation that you're running, and member satisfaction? Are they in harmony, or in some senses you have to make trade-offs? Yeah.
Oh, it's a tough question. And I will say it is something that for us, we absolutely had to consider both, and we still consider both as we look at different ways to introduce AI as a solution to
Yeah.
meet strategies and opportunities we have. But every financial institution is so different, so it's definitely not a one size fits all scenario. If you think about, for credit unions, the members are different. Are you community based? Are you seg based? Where are you located?
Mhm,
Right?
mhm,
What's
mhm.
the demographics, the ages of your members? What type of technology do you introduce today? Is this a just one additional channel, or
Yeah.
is this taking a leap forward in how you interact with members today? So there's so many variables that you have to consider. So I think, and it actually made me think about some conversations I had of recent with some credit union leaders where they're concerned about introducing a member facing AI
Correct.
bot,
Correct.
whether it be conversational or through chat or both, because they have what they consider more like traditional members, people that are used to having a conversation with a real person. They visit a branch, they
Yeah.
call Sally, they call Ben because they know these people.
Yeah.
And they're concerned that this could disrupt it so much where they could lose them. And so, and I think that's a very real concern. And
It
I
is.
think most institutions are going to have that, whether it's whatever percentage that is. So it's important to keep in mind that really thinking through how that impact is going to be felt
Yeah.
across your members and also for your employees, because you have to make sure that everyone feels as if they understand the why. So why you're delivering this, why you're introducing it, and provide some education and a lot of communication about it.
Yep.
Because if you think about it, I mean, who who here has ever called an airline provider and has spoken first with a person? In the last 3 years. Hasn't
Mm-hmm.
happened,
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Cable providers, right? Cell phone providers, they all adopted this way before banking and credit unions did.
Correct.
It's been in
Correct.
use, so it's becoming more the norm. And so why wouldn't we take advantage of that so we can spend more time to assist our members where in areas and solutions and topics where they really need our help, right? So we can provide more consulting and really live to our mission. So Great Lakes Credit Union, we are a low income designated credit union. We have over 110,000 members. There is no way we can support all those members 24/7 in a cost efficient way. So for us, using AI made the most sense because it allows us to present an additional option to those members so they can call Olive at any time, have a conversation with her. And if that conversation elevates to a point where they need more personalized support, well, during regular business hours, we can do that, right? And so it just helps us really offset some of that. I think of it as you hear the term channel of choice,
Yeah.
and so that's where recognizing your membership base is going to vary wildly, right? Well, make sure you have channels that kind of meet everyone's needs, right? And then they can choose. They can choose the one that fits best for them,
That's a
and
very
in
nuanced
balancing
point.
it.
That's a very nuanced point because what you're
Yeah,
saying is that with LLM powered solutions, with your RAGs and the knowledge sources that you're tapping into, you have to define a boundary and scope of what an automated conversational bot can do and at what point of time you need to then escape it or escalate that to a human. So, for example, let's say there is some small portion, I understand your member base, but let's say there's a small portion of that member base that is saying, well, I think I need some forbearance support right now because of financial difficulty that I'm going through. That is not a discussion that you want to have your bot do. You want to be able to escalate that to a specialist because the package that you're going to put together for that particular troubled member is going to be very bespoke to that member. So knowing at this point of time, I need to jump out and get the human in the loop. On the other hand, if somebody's having a problem, cliche, but with your password or how do I do this transaction or I got this error code when I was using an ATM. To your point, if you've got 100,000 plus members and you're looking to scale, you're trying to make that process more member centric, get them the satisfaction of getting immediate response. At the same time, you're managing that cost of transaction. So you're really trying to find that blend between there, right?
exactly, exactly. And it's just providing that choice. It allows you to really offset a lot of those, I call them pure transactional type requests,
Yeah.
right? What we found is that most of our members, they actually just want the information as quickly as possible. So not having to wait on hold to speak to someone and just getting that information at any time they need it, while they could do that through a mobile app, while they could do that through a chatbot, while they could do that through a variety of different factors. This is just one other way for them to do it. And it helps kind of offset those transactional needs so
Yes.
you can spend that time to ensure we're living to our mission, right? To ensure that financial education and support and consulting and really
Correct.
educating our members and helping them through, especially times like today. We absolutely should be doing that. That's living, I truly believe, to the credit union mission.
Awesome. let's jump into business plan done. Let's obviously we're dialing back in time a bit. So business plan done, you're getting ready to implement this entire solution. Again, the goal of this pod is to really support other credit unions and learn from executives like you. So given
Hmm.
this heavily regulated nature of the credit union space and sensitive financial data involved, as you've got the hindsight of a couple of years in now, what are kind of the risk management guardrails and compliances frameworks that you feel you had to put in, or you've learned, maybe you got burned a little bit, got singed here in some places? How's that experience been in terms of making sure that even if it is post fact, once you've seen results in production, like, maybe I need to put some guardrails in here. Any anecdotes that you want to share there? That'll be a great share for the credit union community to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I will say that our approach and what we started with is vastly different than where we're at today. And
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
because the regulatory environment and acceptance of this type of technology has changed significantly. So in the beginning, much more conservative, right? Making sure that we had strong language in our contract with Interface AI to protect our institution, protect our
Hmm.
members in the event that regulators said we couldn't, could say that we cannot offer it or anything that effect, right? Interface AI decides we're going to get out of this business, things like that,
Yes.
right? So that
Yes.
was where we started. Where we're at now, and you've seen this shift in the industry, is being very focused on a few different factors. One is you have to make sure your data is accurate, right? Because if you have
Hmm.
junk
Hmm.
data, you're going to have junk output to your members. So you have to make sure that however that information is being leveraged, that it's accurate, and then the security around it has to be very, very meeting regulations, exceeding regulations, but then also that you're monitoring it. So I just think about it as go back to your FFIEC IT handbook.
Hmm.
You need to make
Hmm.
sure that just like any other, and we consider this a critical or high risk vendor and
Yes.
solution,
Yeah.
hold them to those same standards, right? Just like any other third party you have, that's helped us really ensure that you're encrypting data, that you're sending the least amount of information as possible, that integration is secure. Fortunately for us with Interface, we're leveraging a pre-built integration. It's a VIP integration, so we already know all the structure around that. We
Yeah.
know how thorough Jack Henry is in examining that. So that gave us a sense of relief with
Right.
it. But then you have to also introduce ongoing monitoring, checks and balances, making sure you understand how that information is being pulled. Is it being stored anywhere? If it's being stored, who has access to it? How long are they storing it? What's the purge process like?
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions. So just like any other technology and partner that you use, make sure that you follow through all the steps of how that data is being used throughout your organization and through that partner, and then also how you're securing it and then purging it and removing it or monetizing it. So that way you're securing it and you don't have data breach. You're not increasing your risk of a data breach.
Correct. And there's another dimension of regulation that and Corridor's got a solution called Gen Guard X, and we'll speak on that offline. One of the experiences we've been working with a couple of GSIBs has been that you have to look at things like even fair lending biases, right? Or groundedness of your response. So, for example, you asked a question related to fee structure for a particular, let's say, a BNPL or equivalent product, and I asked that question, and two people of two different genders asking that question, race, nationality, the responses that you're getting, are they meeting the criteria of FLC? Very critical, right? And it kind of goes beyond the security aspect which you touch base on, but looking at the content and the type of response and also quality of response. So if I ask the same question three different ways but with the same semantic meaning, am I getting the same answers back, right? So that's the whole groundedness and stability of response. So there are multiple dimensions there. Then obviously the well-known things around hallucination or toxicity, but those are headline. But even some of them are very specific, like fair lending compliance or groundedness of response and reliability of response. These are areas which I think are evolving. Uh, and we know that today a lot of the AI regs are being pushed down to the states for execution. So California's got a set of regs, and Illinois has got a set of regs, and it's bit in some senses that since you are focused on a few states as a credit union, it's probably a good thing. When you're a large institution, you're operating multiple states. Now you have AI regs that you have to comply, and it's a hot mess, quote unquote. And so where I'm going with that is that the regs are evolving, and regulators are observing, learning, and watching on how this is evolving, both in terms of conversational bots, but also automation opportunities of using LLM, etc. Right? So there's quite a bit of things going on, and the tests that need to be done, the level of monitoring that you need to do, it's quite a bit, and you kind of need a controlled environment where you can bring in somebody to moderate the responses that have been generated over yesterday, and then test how good the LLM did against ground truth. And so there's quite a bit of this stuff there, and we won't get time to go in there, but I am saying this in the pod so that as folks are building out their business cases, it's as much about the build as much as it about the control function too. And that control function was initially it was all about innovation, getting it out of the door and starting to deliver benefit, like you mentioned, to the members, immediate response. But more and more, comes the other side of it, which is watching from a control box and a guardrail perspective. And that's going to become more and more important as the adoption increases and more functions get an AI influence on them in a sense, right?
Yes. It all goes back to use cases, right?
Goes back to
What's
use
your
cases.
use case?
Yep.
So, financial institutions have so many options when they're looking at how can I use AI? What is the best scenario, best first step or second step to take? If it's decisioning, kind of going back to your
Correct.
first comments,
Yep. Yep.
there's a bit more complexity there, absolutely. And so actually when I testified before the House Financial Services Committee, quite a few members of Congress focused on that, as they should. Like, well, how do you ensure that there's no bias? Desperate treatment, right?
Yep.
How can
Yep.
you hold that tool accountable? So
Yep.
the argument is you hold the solution accountable just like you would an employee. Same thing,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Recorded calls to help ensure that you are monitoring, that there's flags and identifiers that would bring an alert or something to your attention, either that you're finding through testing or automation, whatever the case, right? It's going to vary. That you have to have that in place because you need to hold them accountable just like you would a human. That makes the project and approach much more probably lengthy and takes longer to introduce and adopt across the institution. But once
Yep.
that's up and running and constant, that it should bring tremendous results. Our use with Olive was like a very good starting point because it's pretty simple, right? Very transactional, using core data already introduced. But yeah, it does become much more complex as you continue to go down the path.
Correct. And you increase the scope of what can be done. No, that's very powerful. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
end the podcast on one last question, which is what is unique about Olive and now Oliver is that you have multilingual piece, right? So do you have an anecdote to share where in high and I'm going to have you go wherever you want to go with this question. But if I asked a question in Spanish and translated it and gave a response which which would be funny or wrong, that would be bad. But did you have situations of the fact that it being multilingual? Did you face any challenges or just some funny anecdotes of how it responded? How did the AI respond? Any anecdotes there that you would like to share?
Yes. So Olive we use through Interface AI for
Mhm.
inbound calls,
Yeah.
right? So that's inbound. We are in Chicago. We're in and around the Chicagoland market. Chicago has a very large Hispanic population.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
for us, that was a no-brainer. We've got to introduce Spanish because for many of our members, that's their preferred language. That's their language
Yeah.
of choice. So absolutely we should do it. We already have a bilingual program for our employees. Why wouldn't we have technology that does that as well?
Yep.
So while we were working with Interface, our bilingual teams who come from a variety of different parts of the country or here in the US, right, that speak different dialects,
Yes.
well, testing the dialects was a challenge. And we're like, okay, how do we pick the one that actually is closest to what majority of members would respond to and have more of a natural conversation with here in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
And so there were definitely some funny moments where, maybe the translation wasn't quite what they were expecting because of the dialect change. And so
Yes.
that was something I wasn't expecting. But it actually, I think it made it more fun. And it really taught us all a lot about just how diverse our communities are.
Okay.
And so as we continue down that path, then we're like, okay, what's the next language? Is it Polish? Is it because
That's
there's a
true.
large Polish population in
That's true.
Chicago, and so
That's true.
to be determined on that. But it was fun, and it was great to get the involvement of so many different staff members across the organization to use it and really learn. And it helped Olive learn because Olive learns the more we use her, the better she gets,
Yeah.
and so it that helped us quite a bit.
So let me ask you just, and we'll wrap up in a few minutes. As you think about interface.ai, and it's not so much about interface.ai, but more from the chat vendor, there are certain learnings that you have here, the nuanced aspect of dialects and such. Did that help them in some form and manner using anonymized data to improve the quality of their models as they were the conversational bots? Because at the end of the day, when you do stuff like this, you are trying to benefit a large number of such institutions in your asset size space, right? So that they can then pass on, like, well, some of this is already, as they get more clients, and they are able to pass on some institutional learnings ingrained into into the algorithms itself for the model training data. Did some of that happen, or are we still too early for that?
It's a good question. Thinking back, I do recall that we're not the first institution to introduce Spanish for the
Hmm.
conversational bot, and it's been a little bit of time. So from what I recall, the markets in the country that had introduced Spanish
Yeah.
were quite different from Chicago. And
Hmm.
so it kind of led to why, when we introduced it, it took a bit more time to learn and refine it from a
Okay.
dialect perspective.
Okay.
So based on that, I would assume we assist in that process. I know there's a lot of guardrails in place with interface to ensure we're not obviously sharing data,
Yes.
but of
Yes.
course helping their solutions, which, Sri, their CEO, he is such a visionary. I love what he's doing. And so it was good to work through that with him.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. That's very cool. And let me ask you one last question.
Okay.
As you look forward with LLM powered solutions beyond conversational bots, and obviously that's been a low hanging fruit, whether it's from a contact center cost efficiency or even frontline on the website and such, right? So it's very clear. But LLMs have power to automate a lot of transaction processing or end of day, like goodnight processes as we call it, right? There's opportunity there. So as you look out in the vantage of the role you play into 2026 and 2027, are there areas that you're exploring where this powerful technology can be used beyond bots or agents?
Oh, yes. There are so many opportunities, and there is not enough time to introduce them all. That's where what our biggest challenge is, because every single area across the organization is itching for
Yes.
automation
Yes.
and better tech. And so this was a topic of discussion during strategic planning with our board
Hmm. Hmm.
just last month. And so we spent a good amount of time talking about our AI strategy in different use cases and really finding what's the
Hmm.
best right fit based on where we're at. Because at Great Lakes Trading, we've changed drastically in the last year and a half, 2 years, because of we've had three mergers and one branch acquisition, and we've introduced QSOs, and so we're a completely different organization in that way. And
Hmm.
so what we agreed to is that our best next use case that
Hmm.
would benefit from automation and so forth is actually back office operations.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
specific to, like, ask any operations employee out there. No one wants to do a journal entry all day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exception processing is a nightmare. There's, the HELOC and any kind of loan post-processing review that's being done to then determine what additional documentation is needed.
Exactly.
These are very simple use cases and opportunities to apply LLM to then come back and say, hey, we're going to take a task that today takes 4 hours. It's now 4 minutes. You have the audit trail. You have all the information you need. And so now your employees can shift to spending more time supporting members, and they don't feel as rushed, and it's more accurate. So
Correct.
that's a win-win across the board.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
Can
there
leverage
are.
the Gen
Exciting
AI
times.
capabilities. Exciting times. Great.
Very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Elizabeth. This has been an awesome podcast, some great sharings. And I look forward to continuing our conversations in the future with some more podcasts. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Adita. It's so nice meeting you. It's been a pleasure. Great
Awesome.
conversation.